Welcome back to Kath Mikey Make a podcast. I'm Kath.
And I'm Mikey.
And this is episode 19 of our podcast. Today we're talking about The Green Knight. What a movie.
Yeah. It was really
That's
good.
the end of the episode. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So this is going to be a full-on spoiler review. Just so if you haven't seen the movie, we do recommend you go watch it. It's so good. It's it's an A24 production, so I wasn't expecting anything less than what they gave, and they, just like went ahead and broke through the ceiling of my expectations, I think. But no, I don't think I know. What do you think, Mikey?
Yeah, I loved it too. This conversation is spoiler filled, so this is for people who watched it. We're not really trying to convince anyone, but on the off chance that you haven't, please go watch it. Do yourself a favor. It's really well made. I was very engrossed in a way that I don't often get with movies, especially lately. It felt more like a book, like reading a very good book, or getting really immersed in a long video game or something like that.
Yeah, I can, but like an indie game that it's very atmospheric.
Yeah, no, it doesn't feel like, it only feels like a video game in the sense that when the story is good enough in a game, you forget about the real world and you get sucked in. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
yeah,
just paying it high compliments up top. But yeah, I'm just gonna do a quick summary, and then I'll let you start off with some of your thoughts. Okay, so young Gawain,
yeah.
Young Gawain, the nephew of King Arthur and son of Morgan Le Fay, seemingly spends all his time in bars and brothels, and has yet to prove himself and become a knight. During a Christmas celebration, King Arthur calls Gawain to his side, lamenting that he never got to know him growing up. He asks Gawain to tell him a story, and to his quiet shame, he has none to tell. Then a mysterious tree-like creature called the Green Knight appears to them, offering a challenge. Whomever accepts the challenge will strike the knight with his own axe on the condition that the challenger find him in exactly 1 year to receive the exact same blow in return. An all too eager Gawain accepts the challenge in order to prove himself, beheading the Green Knight. The knight then carries his own disembodied head out the door, uttering the words 1 year hence, and laughing. In 1 year, Gawain sets off on his journey to find the Green Knight and complete their game. Alright, so, tell me. Tell me your secrets.
Well, just purely on performances alone, I thought it has a lot of good actors. But I thought that obviously Dev Patel's performance was top notch. And it's so funny how he went from, in my mind at least, he went from Zuko or whatever his name is in The Last Airbender, the movie that we don't speak of, to this character. Good for him.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah.
He looks much better in this movie.
Oh, definitely. And he's done other movies in between, but
No.
No. I also like Alicia Vikander's performance. I thought it was so enthralling. What sold her performance for me was her monologue as the lady. Do you remember that part?
When she was talking about why the color green?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty good.
I remember enjoying it while it was happening. I don't remember all that was said, though.
No, I don't. It's something that I will have to go back to, but
yeah.
I just remember being completely, consumed. while she was
Completely
talking.
drawn into her speech. Yeah, you told me later on that she's the same one who played, what was her name? Edith or something?
No, it's Essel.
Essel, right. She played Essel earlier in the movie, and I had no idea until you told me.
Yeah, and they don't even. I was surprised that you did it. It was because they don't really go around. They don't really go out of their way to try to hide
I
it.
mean, no. Her face is front and center. I think what they did was change to long hair, maybe take away some freckles, and she's dressed like a lady.
Yeah,
And that apparently is enough
for you to be fooled.
to be fooled because of my very limited understanding of the way the universe works.
Essel. Well, for those that don't know, this is based on one of the Arthurian myths or the Arthurian stories, which is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. It's from maybe the late 14th century, even though there's research that Arthur, probably not a real person, but Arthurian stories or like the myth goes all the way back to the late Roman period, since back in the day, Londonium used to be a Roman province. So it's like it comes from all the way back, like right in the end of the Roman Empire, the Bretons versus the Saxons, all that fun stuff. But in this case, Sir Gawain is very much a medieval story set around the stories of Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, which it's interesting for the story because the themes feel very much modern, even though they're not, and it shows how these themes keep repeating themselves throughout human history. Which, and also goes to show how good the director was and the screenwriter, which is David Lowery, both screenplay and director, how he managed to modernize the story of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight in a way that you didn't need to bring it to present day in order for it to feel relatable and modern. And it's really refreshing.
I think for me, it was.
Sorry?
I think it would have been worse.
I think it would have been worse. For me, it's very refreshing because I feel like the last couple of movies, like Arthurian movies that have come out, have been very what's this guy's name?
Guy Ritchie.
Guy Ritchie, yeah. Guy Ritchie style movies, or very, drama.
I haven't seen or been excited about a King Arthur story in a long time. I didn't even know this was Arthurian until we started the movie.
Yeah. Oh, really? I kind of got it because I did know about Sir Gawain, and because of the trailer, sort of like the aesthetic, and yeah, it did not. It really nailed everything in the head for me. And I enjoyed, first of all, the structure of the story. The story is divided kind of in chapters. They don't really say like chapter 1 or chapter 2, but they do show like these cards like right before like the story is about to change. The ones I remember, for instance, like there's a Christmas game. After that, it's a short year. Do you remember that one? It's like a very short year, to show how time passed.
It was like a year that was way too short.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
And he just did the same crap he was doing before.
Exactly. I was actually, I think that's interesting that they found there's nothing of note in that year that took place.
Mm-hmm.
a year after which he might have died, by the way, and he spends it doing the exact same thing he's been doing the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Because when he accepted the Green Knight's challenge, yeah, it was glorious in that moment, I guess, because he was the Christmas entertainment, and that's about as far as it extended.
Mm-hmm.
But he just took it a cheap shot, which was easy, but didn't do anything to earn it, so he hadn't learned anything. He was the exact same person, and a year later he's like, fuck.
And then he eventually leaves into his quest. I think the next one, it's like a kindness, which is not a kindness at all. I guess we can talk about that, or we can talk about it now. The scene with the scavengers.
Yeah.
Probably the most, at least for me, was the most stressing part of the story. Besides,
Yes.
I guess, towards the ending. But for me, it's a situation no one wants to be in.
It was
Like, just
frustrating
getting
to
mugged.
watch.
Yeah, basically, just to summarize, he bumps in, Gawain bumps into someone, like a guy, a scavenger in a battlefield. He asks for directions, and the guy kind of gives him directions. And he like gives him like a kindness for his, for his troubles. And I guess it wasn't enough money that he gave him, because he basically sends him into a trap.
I like the way that actor says, "Torrent enough."
Oh gosh.
Weren't enough.
Who's that? That guy is. He is about to come out in a movie.
Really?
Barry Keegan. Barry Keegan. Yeah, he's gonna be in Marvel's The Eternals,
Oh, I see.
I think, as an Eternal.
Sometimes minor villains just stand out of nowhere.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And this isn't the first time I've seen him. He's a pretty well-known Irish actor. Well, not super well-known, but he's been in roles that, I think I did see him in this like RTE drama called Love Hate. Probably the first time I saw him, an Irish drama. But he was very good as the scavenger. He scared the bejesus out of me as the scavenger.
Yeah.
And he takes off with Gawain's horse and his axe. Or not his axe, but the Green Knight's axe.
This is the first example of the many times that Gawain falls short during the movie and acts without virtue.
But also he's it's like he acts like a knight. He wants to be a knight.
Exactly.
But when he gets asked like, well, aren't you a knight? No, I'm not a knight.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not even as in like, I don't deserve the title to be called a knight. It's more like, oh, no, I'm not a knight. I'm not the guy you're looking for.
Yes.
It's that guy over there. It
Purely,
really does show.
Purely self-preservation in that moment, when before he was happy letting the guy believe that he was a knight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And earlier too, kind of putting on a show for the kids, completely ignoring them as he's leaving the town.
Yeah.
And
oh yeah.
Yeah, and then when they take off, he sort of like slumps over.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's done putting on the show for now. He can go back to being scared shitless.
Yeah. Like the little weasel he is.
Yeah.
After that, the other chapter is Gawain meets Saint Winifred.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, it's the interlude. And then finally, it's towards the end of the movie, the Green Chapel.
I really like the upfrontness when he asks, "Are you a spirit?"
And I think she answers like, does it matter?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But yeah, when the bandit takes off with his stuff, we get this first, what I now realize is foreshadowing, this first instance of Gawain seeing what will happen if he continues to be the same. If he continues to lay there, woe is me, they took all my stuff, and how am I going to get anywhere? Then he would end up a skeleton, which they showed.
Yeah.
was going to make the joke. The camera is going to pan over there, and he's going to be a skeleton.
And then it's the end of the story.
And then it happened, and I was like, oh my god. I legitimately thought they killed him for a moment and didn't know where it was going. But this was just a vision. It became very real to him in that moment that if he did not do something, then he would perish.
Yeah.
So yeah, he gets to a sword on the ground and cuts himself loose, causing himself pain by cutting himself in the process, but he still overcame that obstacle and was set free.
It's interesting how the story is framed in chapters, but it's also framed in cycles. Because yes, it's divided by chapters, but it's also a story that goes from Christmas to Christmas, or Christmas to Christmas and a day, which is when the challenge was supposed to end. I guess I should first say that the original Sir Gawain, like one of the themes is like the man versus nature, the nature being the Green Knight.
An idea which I really like.
Yeah, and it has a lot to do with, like how nature is this chaotic thing that we have to deal with as a civilization, and it has, a lot of themes
that could be a play. It could be interpreted in so many ways, I feel.
Yeah, it could be.
The director said that for him the main conceit of the film was like finding it's like overcoming the idea that you need to be legendary, because that's a story that won't survive you as long as you think it will. It's just going to be swallowed by time.
Yeah.
But realizing the value in comporting yourself with dignity and kindness, and how that's important to do right now, and not like some vague legacy that'll be around when you're not even going to be around to see it. Who cares? You'll be dead.
Yeah, and that is very it really, in a way, that idea of the legend, of you becoming a legend, really clashes with the way nature works, which is it's a cycle. It's death and rebirth.
Yeah.
Constantly, and it doesn't care about your legends and your myths and your heroes.
Yes, it's constantly washing over itself and mixing itself up, like constantly rearranging, even if it's doing it slowly. It's always moving. It's
always moving forward, and we humans are also going through that cycle. We are so focused on ourselves that we don't even realize it. We're so inside our minds, and we really buy into this idea of our own greatness as people, as individuals, and as a species, conquering over nature and conquering over the world, conquering over others, that we really do forget that we will die eventually, and nature would just keep taking its course.
Yeah. I feel like it's even in the language of the film, where the scavenger is talking about the decaying corpses on the ground. He said, no, there's no one around to bury them, but don't worry, nature will do its thing and swallow them back up. The first time of the theme of man versus nature sort of setting in is, you're right, we're really focused on individualism, and we forget that we're part of a whole. So Gawain is living his life like he gets to have his own private piece of the cake, or that that human consciousness is like all about pleasure and sucking as much pleasure as you can out of life. And then when Arthur calls him up and asks if he has any stories, that's supposed to be an honorable moment, but he has no stories because he's been so busy indulging. And I think that challenges Gawain's view that it's all about pleasure in the moment he steps up there, because before, when Arthur wasn't paying attention to him, he could just slink into the background and everyone would be none the wiser. But now he's being confronted by this legend, and it's like, oh, now I can't hide. I'm supposed to be an actual person, and I'm not acting like one. And so I think that fits in, like, with us not believing we're a part of the whole world. It's like he didn't really thought he really belonged with the round table.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's the moment where the mother performs a ritual to summon the Green Knight, which I think it's alluded to many times that she is the orchestrator of this game, because in the original tale, she was not Morgan Le Fay. In this version, his mother is Morgan Le Fay.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's an excellent choice. I think that adds so many more layers, like having to do with parenting and having to do with her being the embodiment of Mother Nature. But Mother Nature, but also the goddess Kali in Hinduism, who loves her children so fiercely that she goes as far as to behead them in order to set them free from their delusions about reality.
Wow.
Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's just so deep and layered in that way, and she's being a good mother in the sense that she is guiding him, but giving him enough room to make mistakes, of which he makes many, and to find out who he is, because you can't find out who you are unless you start making mistakes.
Yeah. Well, in this real story, in the not the real story, the original story, it was orchestrated by Morgan Le Fay.
Really?
Yeah, but Morgan Le Fay, I believe, is not Gawain's mother.
Yes. Okay, I was thinking she must be the fox too, you know. I think that she was guiding him in that way and just testing him throughout. I mean, I feel like there's no other explanation for him getting his items back other than she was watching over him and trying to lead him to making the right decisions. So in that way, like, this weird movie full of dread kind of has this loving undertone to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's constantly fucking up, he's riddled with self-doubt, but underlying it is love and the desire for him to overcome this weird place he's in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that. Well, the significance of the color green versus the color yellow that Gawain wears. The green has been analyzed in many ways. Like, some people associate it with like fertility and rebirth, but it's also like in nature, but it's also associated with like death, pestilence, witchcraft, devilry. You know, it has a dual nature, the color green, in many ways. It's like I do see it like these interpretations. It's two facets of the same coin. Is that the same? That's not the same. But
Two sides of the same.
Two sides of the same coin. Obviously, because as with many things, there's like always the whole idea, like there's always the theme behind the original story of paganism versus Christianity, like what pagans see as good, and you know, nature, all of these things that they understand as positive, well, Christianity will probably paint as a negative for their own reasons.
It's funny you bring that up, because in one of the director's interviews that I saw, he mentioned how he later added the Morgan Le Fay scene where she's summoning and intercut it with Arthur's speech, because he was trying to do that direct parallel of like the Christianity and of the old the old ways, the old pagan rituals. And
Yeah.
I think the old pagan rituals make sense as the one representing nature as opposed to Christianity representing civilization.
Yeah, in the like many people and some people at least interpret in the original story the Green Knight, like I said before, like chaotic nature that invades and pervades the halls of the court and the strides that humanity is trying to make towards civilization. It's always like kind of like a threat in many ways. And you could also see like you said, nature as pagan and civilization and court as like the beacon of Christianity and like moving towards the light, to say it that way. Some people interpret it differently, at least in the original story, in kind of like a comedy on Christianity, trying to like beat down paganism no matter what, even if it's not really a threat to anyone anymore. Because in the original story, unlike here, which is kind of ambiguous, but you kind of can assume that the Green Knight does behead Gawain. In the original story, that doesn't happen. There is the 3 times that always the three times where he like moves away from the axe, because he's afraid. He keeps asking like, wait, and then finally when he gives out and he's like, yeah, you can chop my head, it turns out to be, oh, don't worry, it's a whole ruse, it's a game, don't worry about it. And it turns out that he's actually the Lord that we see before Gawain goes into the chapel. They don't give him a name. In the story, his name is Lord Bertilak the Halt Desert. That's supposed to be the name of the guy, of the Lord, the character played by Joel Egerton in the movie. He, in the end, in the real story, turns up to be the Green Knight.
Which he also was in this.
Kinda.
Yeah, he was.
He was?
Yeah, that was confirmed. He
so it was
the Green
confirmed.
Knight. Yeah.
When was it confirmed?
Apparently you can catch like a glimpse of him as the Green Knight, like just before like they part ways in the forest.
I did tell you this, that I thought that was gonna be a reveal, like a true reveal, because of the way his voice sounded when Gawain was turned away, and like even the camera was turned away from the Lord, as he's called.
Yeah, his voice
change. Sounds like the
Mm-hmm.
Green Knight. So I was like, holy shit. But I thought that they kind of leave it to interpretation. I didn't know I didn't catch that, at least.
Yeah, what you said about the end, I think he did live. But like we said the night we watched it, I don't think it matters either, because he still won. I mean, at least if he doesn't see dying as winning, at least to us as viewers, he won. It's like, yay, you did the right thing.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I was saying about the green, the green, going back to the colors, and I found it interesting that if you see, the only thing that isn't really green or gray is Gawain's. I don't want to say it's a sash, because it's not a sash. His cape. Do you remember the color he wears? It's yellow.
Uh-huh.
And I try to do a little research on yellow, what it meant. I don't know if you can confirm if this has been talked about by the director. I don't know anything about it. But yellow in medieval paintings, yellow was usually used to replace gold when gold was too expensive for like a fresco or a project. Like if you were gonna use it like in big big surfaces, and so it was yellow was a cheap alternative to the real thing, which would have been gold, to paint something gold, and it was used to signify gold. So I thought it was that was interesting in the sense that he's trying to look a part which he is not, in the movie and throughout the story. He wants to be gold, but it's not that he can't afford it, but he really isn't gold.
Mm-hmm.
He ain't golden, baby.
He's
not yet.
Kirkland Knight as opposed to a name brand Knight.
I guess.
Yeah. Did you notice the Christ parallels? Because I did not, and I had them pointed out to me, which were apparently very deliberate. The first words he hears upon waking up is, "It's Christmas." And he knows his mother, but not his father. No, sorry, it wasn't, let's rewind. Because it wasn't, "It's Christmas." The first thing you hear upon him waking up is, "Christ is born." That's the first thing Essel says. And so yeah, he knows his mother, but not his father. The portrait made of him by the lady looks a lot like the Shroud of Turin. And after the point he loses his horse, people have pointed out its very last temptation in the desert. And he, of course, accepts his own death at the end for something greater than himself.
So Gawain is basically Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But Jesus is supposed to, at least from my point of view, it's supposed to be the human story anyways.
Mm-hmm.
You know? It's a being that's caught between time, because we're in this temporary human form, and infinity, because we're part of the energy that makes everything. But while you're here, the burden of living life is like being crucified. And Jesus chose to love. Sorry, I'm turning this into like a sermon. But he chose to love in spite of that. He decided to carry his burden and die for something greater. So I just thought that was very interesting. He keeps trying to take shortcuts throughout the movie, like asking the giant if he can ride on their shoulder.
Yeah.
And the wolf, who, I'm guessing is his mom, just howls at them and they walk away.
Oh.
Like, no, he has to endure this. And
I thought it was because the giants were gonna eat him, but
oh yeah, because one reaches for him, but he sort of shrinks, kind of like he does with the Green Knight later when he has the axe.
Yeah.
But the giant kind of backs away, oh, I guess you're not ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, on a podcast called The Next Picture Show, one of the hosts suggests that the giants represent magic and mystery leaving the world.
That's really cool.
They're leaving, and Gawain wants to go with them, but his path lies elsewhere, not in fairy tales and fantasies, but in more adult, mundane things like lords and temptresses and beheadings. And then the fox speaks in the voice of his mother, casting out his childish visions and directing him onward to his destiny.
Like Arthur was seen as the giant slayer, like it was mentioned as a giant slayer in many of these stories. The island of Britain, which was, according to Geoffrey of Monmouth, who was one of the ones that compiled the history of the kings of Britain, which is where Arthur one of the stories of Arthur comes from the whole. I think even like the idea of, at least the idea of like he was the king of Britain. Well, Albion was the name for the original name for the island of Britain, and it was known as it was not inhabited for more than. It was uninhabited by none but a few giants. That's what they said. So it was like, it's like the giants as the original inhabitants of the island of Britain, at least in that Arthur story. I could see it as the idea of like magic before man came to disrupt it, and like nature before man came in to disrupt it and make its home there. It's like remnants of the past, in at least how I saw it a little bit that way. And also a call out to the idea that this is in fact an Arthur story. Why not include giants in it?
No, yeah, they sold me in the trailer.
But there are giants in the trailer?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't remember. I don't think I saw that many trailers. I think I saw like the
It was
teaser
in the
trailers.
one you sent me.
Maybe. I can't remember.
I just thought that was impressive because these movies are typically low budget A24 movies, and they just did an excellent job with it because the movie felt very personal while at the same time being very vast, like grand in its scale. I thought it was really well done in that regard. They were really efficient with their budget. There's even a scene where it's when he's in his court on the first Christmas before the Green Knight comes in, and he couldn't get a shot wide enough, but he's like, the director is a big fan of like 80s movies and extending shots with paintings like they did in Star Wars. And so when you see them pull out into a wide shot in that room, everyone, like all the extras in the corners were hand painted in.
Wow.
Yeah, and the result is beautiful. The whole movie looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah, many of the shots were really very cool shots. I liked one. I don't know if you remember the one. I think it was a little bit. It was in the interlude. I can't remember if it was before or after he meets the giants, where it like starts turning, like we see him in like this ground of rock, and all of a sudden you see how it starts turning, and like the whole frame starts turning.
It's upside down.
Upside down. I don't know what that kind of angle is called, but I just thought it looked pretty cool.
It did look pretty cool. It made me very aware that he was walking on top of a planet, you know, because there's no up and down in space.
Yeah.
Instead of crossing a vast land, it's just like, no, he's a little ant on this little ball.
Yeah, yeah. And of course in the interlude he has an experience with shrooms. I like that it wasn't exploitative in the sense that, well, obviously this is a good movie, so it's not necessarily played for laughs or made to seem like he's, you know, it's not like a trip exactly what he has. He just has like a bad reaction to eating mushrooms he shouldn't have eaten, which happen to have like certain
psychoactive
qualities. But that's where we get confirmed that in fact his mom is actually the Green Knight, or at least was summoned by the Green Knight. He gets like this vision of his mom and the Green Knight. I thought that was also pretty nice.
At what point was the vision?
After he eats the mushrooms.
Yeah. Wow, I remember now.
He eats the mushrooms. He pukes because I guess they weren't for eating. And he starts seeing like something is growing on his hand. It's kind of like as if he was a log and things were growing on him.
It was like moss, right?
Like moss growing on him.
He sees the silhouette is there lightning behind it or something?
There's like lightning
It's
and it's
lit
green
darkly.
everything, and it's like the silhouette of his mom.
And then
it's like the silhouette of the Green Knight.
wow.
Yeah.
I really like that line towards the end, where he's, where, you know, it's revealed that this was not some sort of elaborate test, at least he thinks. And he's about to be beheaded, and he's like, "Is this all there is?"
Oh.
And he's like, "What more ought there be?"
Yeah.
It's just like kind of baffled by the question.
And I think it ties back to the idea of like humans. We want it to be about something.
We want
and
it to
in the
be
end,
a
it doesn't
story.
necessarily have to be about something.
Right. Yeah. Because I wanted to bring this up earlier, but forgot. The Green Knight comes in peace. You know? He comes with a branch of holly above his head and offers them a game. And it's kind of like, okay, we know how vast the universe is, and that can tend to make us feel pretty meaningless sometimes. Yet here we are. Here we are with Mother Nature, and in the same way, us being born is like, it's kind of like it's peace offering. It's like, you may take from me what you will, but this is the game, you know? You take what you will, but eventually I have to take it back. And it goes on and on and on like this. And so
Yeah.
it
It's a
kind
cycle,
of,
yeah.
yeah, and it's them saying Christ is born at the beginning. I feel like that lends more credence to this, because it's like you are born into the world, and then people ask you, like, what are you going to be when you grow up? What's your story? And then and then nature does its thing, and it's like, this is what lies before you. Do with it what you will. And in the end, you just find yourself coming back to where it all started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Arthur reminds him it's just a game.
It's just a game, because Arthur's been through it all. You can't be that legendary without having made mistakes yourself, and or not having had a moment of self-discovery.
Right.
Yeah, because I mean, Green is also what you call a novice, right? So Gawain could also be seen as the Green Knight. Arthur is a fully embodied person. He's well liked. He's bared his burdens in life. He's a warm presence. He's very kind, and he doesn't. His first speech in the movie is to tell everybody, "I wouldn't be here without you." So he's like, he's not hyper focused on his ego and individuality. He's telling everyone in his circle, literally, I would not be here if it weren't for you, and I am the one who is honored to be in your presence. And Gawain has not found that type of humility yet. He has not ever had to meet a challenge in the same way that you assume these other people have. Until now. Yeah, that's something compassionate Guinevere, that's Guinevere, right? Says, after he says, "I have no stories," she goes, "Not yet." You have no stories yet. And I think that's a very wise and compassionate thing to say to a young person who doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah. We haven't talked about the green sash.
Yeah, the green sash.
Um,
Which becomes integral. I mean, that's involved in the moment of truth. So his mom's kind of tricking him from the beginning, right?
Kinda, yeah.
She gives it to him and she says, wear this and it will ensure your safe return.
Yeah, and then he loses it.
Then he loses it, yeah.
And then he gets it back again.
he gets it back again from people who totally aren't his mom.
um,
Maybe it's that thing where, you know how people go through cycles where they feel hyper confident and then they get knocked down a peg and they're filled with doubt until they do something decent again and their confidence is restored. Maybe the sash could partially be interpreted as that, like, this fake sense of swagger you get, or being puffed up once you overcome a particular task.
I think it's also like a failed sense of security too.
A false sense of
False
security,
sense of-
yeah.
A false sense of security.
It definitely is that, because it's superstitious, you know, to wear this sash and it'll protect you for always and always and always. It doesn't make him brave.
No. I mean, it may be. I mean, if you believe in witchcraft, it may make him invulnerable, but
Right. But also dishonorable,
yeah,
because he's not playing by the rules.
no.
No. I mean, what do you think about the green sash?
What do I think about the green sash? I think, well, is it a sash? I said green sash, but
I don't know, whatever. The green belt.
the belt, the girdle. um, I think it also means like the idea of winning something without working for it. You know, just getting it handed to you. The same way Gawain has probably gotten everything handed his whole life.
Yeah. Another
And
shortcut.
this is your one chance to finally have something for yourself, like a story to tell. And even then, you take the opportunity to cut corners. Like the same thing, like you mentioned, like trying to ride off the backs of giants.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny too, because he's literally trying to stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
Ah.
Huh? And it's something that you see him struggle throughout the movie, whether he knows this or not, like the character knows this or not, well, that's a different story. He probably realizes at the very end probably what matters, but he's always about, well, how can I make this easier, or how can I, like, what can I get from it? Like in Winifred's case, he's like, well, what do I get in return? It's like, are you really asking me that? Are you really asking me that?
Even after everything he learned throughout the movie, when it comes to his vision, when he leaves the Green Knight, says, I'm sorry, I cannot, and just takes off. He's just in a rush to get back home to do the same things he's always done, except lie about whatever happened. And then he gets rewarded for the rest of his life. But it ends with him being a horrible king.
Horrible person.
Losing a horrible person. Yes, that's the thing. He becomes great but stops being good. And he's just he's so hollow. Like the soul, he becomes devoid of soul. You see everybody leaves in his vision, and his mother is the last one to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of has this look in the crowd that she gives him for a moment where she sees his unhappiness, and I think that it's because she knows that he's not being truthful or true to himself. Like she's smiling from the crowd, and then her smile just kind of fades. Like, oh wow, you really let it all down, you know?
When is she smiling from the crowd? I'm sorry.
And
Essel?
no, his mother.
Oh.
In the vision,
Sorry.
she's in the crowd with the rest of the court, and he's on the throne, and they're smiling and supposed to be celebrating him. But, his wife disappears, everyone disappears, and his mother, finally is the last one to walk away.
Yeah.
Before he pulls out the sash and his head just tumbles off. Completely meaningless death. Completely without honor. And that's, that results in the final moment of the film where he really does learn his lesson. Like he finds that it is not worth losing his goodness to live and be this false idol. And so he takes off the sash in like a moment that I felt both of our joy in that moment just like shoot through the roof. We were just like, he did it. And I love the way the Green Knight responds to him. It feels like the veil is completely dropped and it's just his mom talking to him. And he just slides his finger across his throat and he goes, "Well done, my brave knight. Now, off with your head." And then it ends. I thought that was it was kind of a cute way to end it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so in the original version, he apparently nicks him with the axe and lets him and spares him.
Yeah, he nicks him, I think, because, to show him, like, you did wrong with the girdle, but you learned it. You learned your lesson, so.
I think that the movie's interpretation of the nicking with the axe is the finger across the throat. Because you saw, Gawain, how deep the suffering was up until then. I feel like that is in itself akin to a slap on the wrist. And it's like, you figured it out. And the game was rigged from the start because this being is immortal. So a wound to him is not the same as a wound to a person. So it's a game. I think he lived, but either way. Either way, it was great.
And they obviously took it, like the Temptations, they took it a little bit farther than the original story. In the original story, the lady gives him 3 kisses and he gives back the 3 kisses to the Lord, except he's supposed to give everything that's given to him in his house back to the Lord. But he doesn't give him the green sash. But in this case, it's like he ejaculates on the green sash. It kind of, in a way, it's I don't think it's even sexual. It's more of like how much you want it, how much he wants it. He wants it so badly, but at the same time, he wants the glory so badly, but he doesn't want to work for it.
Yeah, exactly.
And in the end, it feels empty.
Yeah, and so and he makes another mistake in that moment where the man who is completely hospitable to him, he breaks his promise to him in that moment. So he's just spending his life just getting his and breaking promises. And that's no way to be.
Yeah,
I think. It's a very disappointing way of being. And if we're talking about man not realizing that they're a part of nature, well, you plant seeds with your actions. And the seeds he's planting are rotten. You know, they are not going to bear fruit for him in the future. It's all about pleasure in the moment. Now. What can I get out of this? What can I get? He even asks the spirit, if I get your head, what will you give me in return?
Mm-hmm.
And she has a great response.
Yeah.
Why would you ask me that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, he couldn't just be kind. He had to get what he needed out of it. Yeah, I'll look through a little bit more to see if there's anything else that's interesting from what I looked at online, but after that I can ask you for like closing thoughts. Sorry if I'm holding you long. I know this is like a lunch thing. I didn't mean to. Yeah. I think for now I said everything I want to say, so bless you.
Thank you.
So do you have any closing thoughts?
This is one of those movies, I think, that just... It's a movie that will stay with me for a while.
Me too.
It just has so many things that you can look at, and you can see it from different angles, and so many themes to explore. Like you said, it's like reading a book. And that's a good thing about good movies, that you can pick them apart and put them back together, and from every angle you look at it, you can see something different. But all in all, I thought it was very good. For me, it's like a 9 out of 10 movie. Definitely.
Yeah. It's one of those movies where I felt so immersed that it took a little bit to readjust to my reality. You know, like it just, I know not everyone will be affected by it this way, although a lot of people are. It was just, I felt like they did magic. Like it was that wonderful. So I would say 9 out of 10 too. It's just, it's the first time in a while I've wanted to buy a movie physically, and I don't even really have anything to play it on.
No, yeah, it's... Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. All in all, great movie. Do you know what we're doing next? It's a tradition to ask you when I know we haven't prepared.
Asking me, putting me on the spot. Hopefully, hate watch Iron Fist in honor of a probably way better movie, Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi, sorry.
Yeah, Shang-Chi. So Iron Fist, huh? That's my favorite show.